All right, welcome everyone. We're gonna get started now because I've been told we have a strict schedule. I have to get you all to the main stage whenever that's happening after this. But thank you all so much for being here. We are doing a solution provider showcase, and this one is called Knowledge to Action, Solutions for Reducing Consumer Food Waste. My name is Minnie Ringland. I'm ReFed's climate manager, and I'm gonna be sort of hosting this session. And joined with me is my co-host Lily in the back over there, also with ReFed. This is the first time that we've hosted a solution provider showcase at the annual summit, and so the goal is really to share with all of you some really promising food waste solutions and initiatives and dig into how these solutions work and what their impact can be. So today we'll be hearing from 3 food waste solution providers, giving consumers the tools and resources they need to make more informed choices and reduce waste in their daily lives. So we have 3 presenters. After each presentation, there will be a discussion from our gracious judges who will be assessing the solutions presented today. So I'll jump into an introduction of our judges. So we have Mike Wolf, publisher and editor-in-chief of The Spoon, a food tech news and analysis site, and creator of the Smart Kitchen Summit, which happened last week, and the Food AI Summit. And through these efforts, Mike guides our collective understanding of how new technologies is transforming the food system. And we have Ida Posner, founder and managing partner of Hawthorne Food Ventures and strategic advisor to the Posner Foundation of Pittsburgh. Ida is the 4th generation leader of her family business, which invests in food and rail businesses globally, and we are honored that among many other board memberships, she's joined ReFed's board of directors this year. So let's give them a round of applause. We really appreciate them being here. All right, so how this is gonna work is, after we've heard from all of the presenters, we'll then open the floor up to Q&A with the audience, and there's a microphone here in the middle, so get your questions ready. And then the judges will announce the winning solution based on set criteria areas, such as understanding the problem they are trying to solve, the solution's unique competitive advantage, its ability to be replicated or scaled, as well as its environmental and social impacts. And I should note that this is not a pitch competition. There is no prize money, and all of these solutions that you're hearing about today are really, really fantastic. And the point of having this format is not only to learn about specific solutions, but also get into the minds of how subject matter experts, funders, and other founders critically think about these types of solutions and initiatives so that we're all learning together. So without further ado, I will get off the stage and welcome our first presenter, Bruce Rosner, President and CTO of Green Life Tech. Dr. Rosner is a serial entrepreneur who has authored over 40 patents, 3 of which are directly related to work at Green Life Tech. And Dr. Rosner is also an active fly fisherman, I learned. So let's give them a big round of applause.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for attending. I appreciate it. Just to give a little more background on myself, when you say I'm a founder of many companies, 3 companies, they are all in high-tech electronics, so it's completely different from what I'm doing today. Just to give you a little background. We all know the problem. You've probably heard this 10 times since you've been here. Essentially, we have a lot of waste. Over 1/3 of all produce grown is never consumed. It's over $400 billion a year, and over half of it occurs in the household. Also, it leads to, unfortunately, we have a lot of losses, indirect losses, if you like, dealing with health. Over $50 billion a year in the U.S. alone because of the inability to have access to healthy foods. And finally, there's the environment. Again, it's not a direct cost, it's an indirect cost, in that over 1/3 of that produce that's never consumed goes into our waste, into our landfills. It's wasted. So this, again, I think is just kind of a refresher. So how do you solve this problem? Well, first of all, you have to look at the basics. What causes ripening and over-ripening? It's the excess of the ethylene produced by the fruits and vegetables, along with oxygen in the air. So if you can remove one of those, you can extend the shelf life out significantly. And this has been proven, it's been known for decades. The USDA has done many reports on this, in that if you take out the oxygen, which is what we do with our system, it's revolutionary, it's patent pending, and it's a very high efficiency, low cost means of mechanically removing the oxygen out of a sealed container, and that sealed container is operated at atmospheric pressure. So it's not a vacuum system. So we just circulate the air, take the oxygen out, and we can get down to whatever level you'd like, as low as 0.1%. Typically, we operate in 1 to 2%. Also, we have the ability to introduce ozone, and most of you are probably familiar with that. Sometimes it has a bad connotation, ozone in the ozone layer and so on, but actually it's a very controlled amount inside the container to kill off the bacteria, and this works extremely well. Again, well known for years and been approved by the USDA. And as I'd mentioned, it's completely environmentally safe. The oxygen we remove is put back into the air. The ozone decays back into breathable oxygen, put back into the air. Our first prototype system that's developed here is what we call a Fresh Defend Home. It's for household units. It's a household unit, and it's easy to operate. Just simply open, place the items inside, close it, and it circulates the air, takes the oxygen out. Also, it has the ability to interface to accessories, containers, wines, and so on. It's all the same. Take the oxygen out. As long as this container remains sealed, there's no oxygen. You extend the shelf life out significantly. And so we built this primarily for commercial applicability and using it for basically a promotion for our other programs and so on. How do we compare to other technologies? There is no technology like ours. By that I mean oxygen removal, except at the commercial level. As you've probably heard, in some cases, storage in large containers for commercial, removing the oxygen for apples is a big one, and so on. But we do this on a distributed basis, if you like, very small containers for home and house and commercial, small commercial. There are chemical coatings out there, but they don't have near the capability of what we have, and as the name implies, it's a chemical. We operate in conjunction with refrigeration. We don't compete with them, and we are presently in discussions with refrigerator OEMs to include our technology into the crisper drawers. And there are other alternate methods as well. You know, you have vacuum systems which work okay for collapsible bags. It's not good for large containers, and things along those lines. Well, does it work? Absolutely. We've just completed a project with the EPA and working in conjunction with Purdue University, and I'm going to show you some samples of results here, but you can see here our wilted lettuce control at day 12, our deprived oxygen at day 24. How about the blueberries? Soft, bad after 16 days, and actually this is I've taken those up to 70 days now, and I've stopped the experiment. I fed them to my wife yesterday. She's an attorney, so she's rather cautious. I didn't tell her they were at 70 days. She said, "Hey, these are pretty good." And I said, "Yeah," and I told her they were 70 days old. Cucumbers, again, just an example of this. And I'll tell you kind of as a cautionary note here, you know, I said that the USDA gets 3 to 5x. That's a function of getting the fruit very early in its life. If I get it in the 11th hour, I'm not going to get 3 to 5 times out of it, the lifespan and so on. We don't make a time machine. We make an oxygen removal machine here. To date, we've raised over $800,000 in seed, initial pre-seed money, I'll call it, and also in grants from EPA, Air Force, and also from North Carolina Department of Commerce. We have 3 patents pending and trademarks. And as I mentioned, we've completed the Fresh Defend prototype. We did a Kickstarter program on that. And at the present time, we are engaged with refrigerator OEMs. At the present time, we're looking for strategic partners as we are going to license our technology, just like we do in the refrigerators and so on. And we're looking for investment up to $1.5 million as first tranche. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. We're going to go to our judges for some questions and feedback now.
I like this approach. I really like the idea of creating a product that will make produce last longer in our fridges. I think if it can truly be integrated with the fridge, and if I get in a Whirlpool or a GE and this is in it, that's great. My question for you is, how do you get to that phase? Because appliance manufacturers move really slow. They do lots of deals that end up just killing the startup because they just take 5 years to get it to market. So are you looking to basically go to market primarily through appliance manufacturers, or do you want to create your own consumer-facing brand, or work with like you know, a food container brand?
Okay, good question. Up till about 6 months ago, we were looking primarily at licensing into the refrigeration because we are going to build refrigerators. We were looking at making the Fresh Defend home product ourselves. But due to the funding or lack of, as the case may be, if you're out there looking for money right now, you know all the money's going into AI. And so we kind of pivoted a little bit and said we're going to become a licensing company, licensing the Fresh Defend home into a manufacturer. And we are in discussions with some of these entities. And I won't mention any names because we're under NDA.
Maybe building off of that, could you talk about who your customer is? And I'm curious, it sounds like you're starting with a more B2C model looking in-home. And I think it's awesome that blueberries can last 45 days, but we probably don't need them to last a full 45 days, right? So where are you seeing value capture in terms of people having a willingness to pay for this in their home compared to, on your last slide, you had a couple other, thinking about floral or other B2B marketplaces where it looks a little different.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. We have so many areas we can go into with the technology. And keep in mind that an oxygen removal will extend the shelf life of any organic, not just food, wines, and blueberries, but all the others as well. And the lifespan changes, of course. So with the Fresh Defend home, that's obviously intended for home use. It's not a restaurant. We can make a commercial version of that for restaurants, things like that. And then the others are things that we can do longer term. But it's a double-edged sword that we don't want to try and run before we walk. We're focusing on the Fresh Defend home and the licensing of the refrigerator. And you're absolutely right. The refrigeration OEMs, it's a long cycle. So in that case, we're in discussions based on an upfront fee plus royalties and so on longer term.
You said you did a Kickstarter. Can you talk a little bit about that? Is that when you're going to produce a consumer unit? And is that going to be something you push to manufacturing, or are you going to, how's that get to the
right now, we're probably going to license the Fresh Defend home out for somebody else to manufacture. If we can raise sufficient money through an investor, we'll control it. And we don't do the manufacturing inside. We have third parties that we can work with to do the manufacturing and sell it ourselves, do the marketing and sales. We have a team built up for that. It's just a matter of getting the resources in to allow us to follow that path.
What is this going to cost me if I get it? I don't know if you talked about pricing, but I'd love to know what it costs the consumer.
How much you got? The Fresh Defend home will retail for under $400, $399. That's the target. We have a very good margin on that, I can tell you that. And in the refrigerator, right now, again, our marketing strategic placement is to go to the high-end refrigerators and so on. But I can tell you that we're looking at a cost of implementing this in a refrigerator of about $80. So it's not all that expensive. And if people I've talked to, and you probably already know this, and the refrigerator manufacturers know it, your crisper doors don't work. Most of you haven't read the instructions. I didn't. And working with them, we found out that hardly anybody does, but they really don't work even if you use them properly. This really extends that shelf life out. You ask about the value and so on. A typical household loses over $2,000 a year in produce and so on. We're selling just the Fresh Defend home at $400. You can see what the return on your investment is there. And the refrigeration will be included in, and it's going to be, I better not say anything about pricing, but you'll get a return on your investment pretty quickly there as well.
We're supposed to keep going? Great, okay. So I'm curious, you talked about some of the other co-benefits with nutrition and everything. Have you done any research on what the nutritional kind of content of this produce looks like when it is still, 3-4 weeks out?
I can tell you, it just extends everything out, and we've done some of the preliminary tests there. We're now applying for an EPA phase 2, so we can do more investigation there. But, right now, of tests, especially that I've done internally, a lot of it's taste tests. I taste it besides my wife. But the lettuce and so on, when I showed that at 24 days, that's edible. And I've done apples internally. We've got a whole list of various things. So, yeah, it just extends everything out. And like I say, it's any organic, and I don't even show it on here. We've been approached for using this for transfusion blood. It does the same thing there, extends the shelf life out, improves the quality. It isn't just making it look good, the quality is improved. And again, there have been numerous tests. USDA has many, many articles on this in various universities and so on. And you probably know it. You work with the apples. It's not after you put them out there. They don't just look good after many, many months. They have to taste good too.
They have to be crisp, yeah, they have to taste good.
And we're doing the same thing, only on a distributed basis.
1 minute left. I know Silo does like vacuum sealing. Who do you see as your competition? Is anyone out there doing anything similar like this?
I'll tell you, I think our biggest competition comes from like a peel and so on with the chemical coating. You have to make up your mind about that, but I'm not big on chemical coatings. Plus, you can't apply that to a lot of fruits and vegetables because the surfaces. It's great for apples or smooth surface items and so on, but again, you've got to get a complete coating on there. It's a chemical, and for leafy items and stuff like that, it's not that good. So ours, it's a gas, or lack of, as the case may be. It penetrates all the crevices, used on raspberries, blueberries, you name it. We've done all that.
Great. Let's hear it again for Bruce. All right, next up, let's welcome Jake Blaisdell, co-founder and co-CEO of Remy. Jake is joining us from across the pond. He has a background in software as a service in both the UK and the US, and has launched into the climate tech space through an accelerator fellowship with ClimateBase. Jake, take it away.
Hi everyone, I'm Jake, one of the co-founders at Remy, where we're building a mobile application which leverages AI to reduce food waste one forgotten meal at a time. But how did I get here? Well, myself and my co-founder, we used to live together. We'd come home every evening, open our fridge, and to be honest, it was absolutely disgusting in there. We would have to take loads of ingredients out of the fridge, throw it in the bin, and we felt really guilty about this. So we decided to do some research into why household food waste occurs. And we found it occurs predominantly for 4 reasons. Firstly, people don't know what's in their kitchen and when it's going to expire. Next, when people go to the store, they don't have a clear plan as to what they're going to buy, so buy a bunch of random ingredients. When it's time to cook with these random ingredients, they don't have an effective way to combine them into meals. And finally, we heard over and over that managing your kitchen sustainably takes a lot of time, and this was just time people didn't have. We've also spoken to a bunch of food retailers who have a huge part to play in reducing household food waste, but they've told us they have near to no data on what actually happens to their ingredients once it leaves their stores. The result of this is they can't create data-driven waste mitigation strategies, and this has led to, within Europe, over 70% of avoidable food waste occurring on the household level. So me and my team have decided to create a solution to this, Remy, your kitchen's new chief operating officer, where we're taking a holistic approach to kitchen management, improving the way you plan, buy, track, and cook your meals. But how does it actually work? Well, let's imagine you were one of our users. We recommend you recipes based on your prior eating habits, your eating behavior, and what's actually in your fridge. When it's time to choose your recipes for the day or for the week, we automatically build your shopping list for you. Here you can shop with your shopping list in 2 different ways. You can purchase with one of our food retail partners through our in-app integration. Or if you go in store, you can take a picture of your receipt or scan all your items, and through image recognition, we will automatically upload them to your digital kitchen whilst also predicting their expiry date. Your digital kitchen is essentially a digital twin of everything you have at home, and it will show you all of your items and your expiry dates. And when it's time to cook, we give you step-by-step instructions as to how to cook your meals to perfection, automatically removing all of those ingredients once you've made that meal, keeping your kitchen up to date. We're creating this for our target customers of 22 to 30-year-old young professionals and 31 to 49-year-old parents and families, and we aim to reach them through our growth partnerships with food retailers and rapid deliveries. But where's the value in something like this? Well, for our users, we can help them save just under $600 per year. So for a family of 4, that's savings of just under $2,500 per annum. We can also help them cut down on strenuous kitchen management activities by over 100 hours. On the other hand, we have our food retailers. We can help enable loyalty with our food retailers by building and maintaining recurring relationships with our users through our in-app purchase integration. And finally, we can help them reach their climate goals by not only reducing their customers' carbon footprint, but we can also provide them with novel Scope 3 emissions data drastically improving their ESG reporting and helping them build those data-driven waste mitigation strategies that I was talking about before. And we're on a path to reducing the emissions caused by household food waste by over 25 megatons of CO2 per year, once at scale. That's just over 770 kilos per person per year. But how do we differentiate ourselves? Well, the size of our target market is actually what sets us apart. Unlike our previous competitors, they've all only been able to target your eco-warriors simply because the app was extremely manual. But through AI, we can target a much wider segment of the market by automating our application, making it much more adoptable, much more scalable, and really improving the overall impact we can make. And our B2B2C business model helps us get there. What I mean by this is we have all this commercial and environmental data that we will provide to our food retail partners completely for free. In return, all they have to do is market us on their commercial and digital channels. This will allow us to make B2C returns at B2B costs, and there's never been a time like now to do it. Because of the recent commercialization of AI, we can automate this product at a much more cost-effective price. And finally, with regulatory changes occurring in the EU and over 85% of food retailers in the UK being signed up to the Quartile commitment, food retailers don't just want this data, they now need this data. Thank you guys so much for listening. And at Remy, we know what's in your kitchen, even when you don't.
Thank you, Jake. We have about 8 to 10 minutes for questions.
This on? Excellent. Great job. It's like you've done this pitch before.
Only a couple times.
So I'm curious, is this live in the UK now, and are you bringing it here? And so from personal experience, grocery shopping in Europe, it's just a really different model where you have a number of smaller stores that are everywhere, and you can walk there, and so people shop for a couple days, rather than in the US, you go to Costco and you're buying food for 2 weeks. And so there is a planning aspect there, but when you're planning for 2 weeks, there's uncertainty built in. So can you talk about how you're looking at the US market from a consumer behavior change related to Europe?
So it might be worth pointing out that we're not actually expanding to the US, for the next 5 years. So we're yet to release in the UK. We're going to release in the next 2 months. We're going to market. And then around 18 months down the line, we anticipate expanding to the DACH region. With regards to the US market, we're not currently involved there.
On tracking consumer food inventory through the life cycle, the easy part's up front. I feel like Amazon or any app can kind of track what I purchased, so I get that. It's as it ages and as I use it, if it requires me to do data logging, then I think that's where you lose so many consumers. So how are you going to get consumers to track it and keep an accurate picture of what's in their kitchen and their fridge?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is really the hardest thing to do, is keeping the kitchen up to date. So there are a couple different ways that we do that. Firstly, if you use one of the recipes within the app, of which we have over 2.3 million different recipes, it automatically, once you press I've cooked that recipe, it will automatically pull all of those ingredients out. And we encourage users to cook with the recipes in the app. Users can also put their own recipes in the app. So if you make, spaghetti bolognese once every 2 weeks, instead of having to manually enter that in every time, you can just say, I've cooked that spaghetti bolognese, it will pull it out. But then there are other, that's for the meals. But the other ways that you can do it is through voice recognition. So we're we plan on integrating with Siri and Alexa. So you can say, hey Alexa, I've eaten half of my bag of blueberries. We also understand that is, again, work for the user to do. So the other ways that we do it is if your ingredient passes its expiration date by more than 48 hours, we will say to you, here are all the things that we think are no longer in your kitchen. Can you say that this is true? And so that way we can pull ingredients out. We also just use kind of the thought process that the kitchen isn't up to date. The kitchen isn't always up to date. So through that, we can then use like different methods to ensure that we're helping the users always update it. So another thing is if you add, let's say, red onions to your shopping list and you've already got red onions in your kitchen, we can assume that those ones are probably not there anymore. So then we'll ask you, can we pull these out of your kitchen? It's something we're still toying with, and it will definitely be really interesting once we have loads of many more users to take data from. But that's where we currently stand with that.
From a waste perspective, are you considering adding anything to measure how much is actually being wasted in the home, right? Because if that is one of the goals, is to optimize your shopping and your preferences, are you considering putting tracking in there? And then something to think about while you're here is maybe connecting with the people at Toast and Mill who are thinking about how to integrate that into the infrastructure they already have.
When you say like tracking, do you mean?
Like, okay, you follow the shopping list and you know what's in your fridge, but unfortunately it still goes bad. And so kind of measuring what's still being wasted at the household level once, let's assume you have your sticky customer who's using this frequently. Have you thought about building in a data collection mechanism or like a nudge in the app to get at that in-home loss?
Absolutely. We're going to implement gamification within the application to ensure that we are seeing what's actually being used and what is still going to waste. We're then going to collect this data, and that's the data that we can then provide to our food retailers. One of our advisors was the former global VP of product at HelloFresh and also worked a lot in customer retention. So she's helping us a lot with how we can nudge users to ensure that we gain that data. But that is really, really important to us, is ensuring that data is firstly clean, accurate data, and data that we can then use to, as mentioned, give to food retailers so they can build those data-driven waste mitigation strategies.
It sounds like you have a shoppable recipe component that's built in where you allow retailers to essentially push potential purchases. Did I get that right? As part of your app?
So what you can do is you can purchase your ingredients, like your shopping list, with one of our partner food retailers, but with the recipes, not at this point.
Okay.
But we do, we have an LOI with one of the major rapid delivery services. They were actually originally from the US, but came to the UK. And something that we're discussing with them is implementing recipes that you can buy now with that service.
Okay.
So, but we need to be careful there, just due to the fact that some of their like dark stores don't have all the products for all of the recipes. So we need to have a comprehensive overview of what ingredients they have in the location that you're closest to, and therefore what recipes we can recommend as a result.
I guess what I'm getting at is when you incorporate essentially might be an advertising model, sometimes there's not alignment with food waste reduction because the motivation of the retailer is to push more produce. The motivation of your app is to reduce consumption. So I just want to make sure when you're building this that those are aligned and don't conflict over time.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's a great point. Something that we have found, which is why we've kind of had a decent amount of traction from food retailers like the major supermarkets, is that across the UK, consumers are incredibly unloyal as to who they shop at. They shop at 2.7 different supermarkets per week. So by integrating this within, by becoming one of our food retail partners, integrating within our application, we can then foster that loyalty and ensure that you are shopping with us as Tesco's or Sainsbury's, as opposed to going to those 2.7 per week.
Awesome. Thanks. Let's give another hand for Jake and Remy.
Thank you, guys.
All right, finally, we're welcoming Eric Weaver, CEO of Transparent Path. Eric's career has traversed software development, digital marketing, brand consulting, and more. He has spent years working on digital transformation and built one of the first AI-powered websites, if I may, all the way back in 1997. Please give Eric a hand.
Thank you. My name is Eric Weaver, founder and CEO of Transparent Path, and I'm here today to talk about trust in food, how it affects food waste, and how technologies are continually coming together to verify that trust. My team is composed of senior corporate executives from a number of large companies like Xerox, Microsoft, Amazon, Target, and General Mills. We came together in 2020 with a mission to increase transparency, trust, and certainty in our most critical supply chains. When it comes to advanced technologies, much of the food industry still runs on paper, faxes, printed receipts, and siloed technologies. That worked great when supply chains weren't impacted by things like missiles from the Houthi rebels and ships destroying the Key Bridge here in Baltimore. But they don't work anymore in a world that's continually disrupted. Paper-based systems are also not set up to handle growing distrust with consumers. For example, food fraud has risen to become a $40 billion problem worldwide. With many food shipments, we have distrust with shippers. So a truck will arrive and the food will be destroyed and everyone goes, I don't know what happened, it was fine when I picked it up, and then the lawyers get involved, et cetera. And then, we also, when we're using paper-based systems and when a cross-border shipment of food takes 100 paper documents to be associated with that shipment, tracebacks in the event of food safety issues becomes a real problem. Oops, my slides seem to be on autopilot. And this is a steak I bought, and I pulled it out of my fridge on June 1st. It expired, supposedly, used by May 31st. What happens when we're not certain about our food in the fridge? Our first instinct is to throw it away, exactly. So this is the kind of thing we want to build as an information system that creates trust, real information about this food, not just marketing claims, but actual data to inform the consumer and the people along the supply chain. So the solution is to digitize that supply chain and share verifiable credentials and data with all parties. So that includes proof about origins, how food was processed, how it was, was it ethically sourced, sustainably raised, et cetera. It includes proof about transport. Was this indeed transported safely, cold chain compliant the entire time? It is amazing how many truck drivers will turn off the reefer miles away from the DC and do their 8-hour sleep thing and then wake up and go, oh shit. Turn it back on and it's cold by the time it gets to the distribution center. So this is a very common issue that terrifies me personally. And when we have all this data, then the supply chain collaborators or supply chain partners can collaborate to make sure that there's less waste. And when the consumer can view this information via QR code, then they have more trust in that as well. So this is what we built. It's currently in market. It's a visibility platform. We use our own IoT devices we place them directly on the pallets so that no matter where that food goes, warehouse, truck, ship, et cetera, we keep an eye on it at all times. Temperature, humidity, tilt, shock, light, et cetera. It feeds our cloud platform, and when anything jeopardizes the food that could cause it to be lost, when it goes out of range, we have an excursion, we instantly send an alert to the driver, to the shipper, et cetera, so that they know. We're running out of time here. So we are working on 2 algorithms to expand this out of just logistics and supply chain into consumers. So imagine a credit score for proof about this product. Imagine that you could look up this product and see actual certifications, actual signatures, audits, et cetera, and have some sense of certainty. Which one would you choose at retail? Fresh Score is something that we're very excited about, a future freshness metric that predicts the freshness of this product in the future. So how fresh will this be today, tomorrow, the next day, et cetera. And let's say you're buying a cod steak here at Costco. You scan the QR code there with your phone, and you're able to pull up the information about that food, including the credentials, and you can actually see a signature for that specific food. So imagine consumers having this information and certainty, how much less likely would they be to throw away that food? There's a larger impact potential that I don't have time to get into, but basically we're not just saving the food by doing this, we're also saving the carbon, the water, the electricity, the labor that went into producing that food, and that also turns into, in some of our clients' cases, meals. So we've saved 4 loads for Feeding the Northwest, which equates to the financial equivalent of 140,000 meals they could provide to the homeless that they wouldn't have otherwise. We're currently operating all over the world, doing food, pharma, and cosmetics. We are looking for partners to help us with the meat and seafood aspects of the decay models for the algorithms, currently working with dairy and fruit at the moment. And we are doing a Series A in January. We were a ReFed 2023 Catalytic Grant Award winner. Thank you, ReFed. And I will be here for the rest of the show. Hope you answer questions.
That was great. Thank you so much. Can you just clarify a little bit about whether you're building hardware, software, both, and if
Sure.
you're not building the hardware, does that already exist, or who are your suppliers?
We started using a partner who told me they would never compete with us, and then at the next show competed with me. So we decided we needed to build our own hardware. So we have just have a product that just got certified in the U.S. and Brazil, which is one of our biggest markets. And so I don't want to be a hardware company. I want to be a data company, because that's what really matters. But we had to do that to get to our point. Okay.
Supply chains are convoluted and many links in the chain. It seems like to force this, you need a Walmart or a Target or a Costco to buy in and then force their supply chain to do it. Is that your strategy?
Please, God, let that happen. That is the kind of thing that we would want to happen, but it's so hard to get into the big retailers. We're targeting the mid-sized retailers, the Hy-Vees of the world, the Myers of the world. Those we have a better chance of getting into. But what we found is that the producers who have the risk up front are becoming more of a buyer than the retailers who have the risk with the consumer. So we're kind of targeting both ends of that supply chain right now.
So from the logistics side of things, and the other hat I wear is in the rail industry, so I'm actually super interested in this. How are you working with 3PLs and trucking companies to get into these trailers, right? And how's that relationship going?
So differently in the U.S. than elsewhere in the world, but in the U.S., let's just say that they'll do whatever the customer asks them to do. So they want to prove that they meet their service level agreements and that they're transporting the food safely and compliantly, but oftentimes there's just a lot of shady characters out there, right? So the ones who are acting ethically and doing well don't mind the transparency. The ones that are, relying on third parties and things like that, they're not so keen about the visibility. So that's why we approach the ends. They're the ones who are most likely to force a Walmart, for example, to force their carriers or their internal fleets to adopt this technology.
In terms of monetization, can you explain the business model a bit? How do you make money and how does this work?
So we charge per shipment and the trackers are included, the software is included, the call center is included. So our team acts as sort of a one-stop shop for harried supply chain managers. We'll watch the shipments for them. They still get the alerts, but you don't need to train your people. You don't need to train yourself. We will train you if you'd like, but we'll watch those shipments for you the entire time. And the minute something goes wrong, we'll be on the phone calling people. So for example, in Chile, they'll ship frozen vegetables to both ends of the country, 1,000 miles each way, and the stuff gets robbed. One producer is losing, $8 million a quarter to theft. The drivers just in cahoots with the gangs. They open the back and they just take all the food. So we can tell them exactly when, where, and who has custody of that shipment so that we can send the police and intervene. So hopefully that answers your question.
On the custody question, so does liability still remains with whoever has custody of the load at that time?
It does.
You're not taking on any of that?
That's correct. And we track the custody. We're the only platform I've seen that actually tracks custody, does automatic changes of custody when the truck leaves a warehouse. It instantly converts, and they have custody. It arrives at a warehouse, and the custody converts, et cetera.
Is this based on blockchain or is this?
We started with the B word, which
I noticed you didn't say it once. Is that on purpose?
Yeah, so we started as a blockchain startup back in the heady teenage days of 2017, 2018. And when everyone was all, then it became NFTs and, Web3 and whatever. We now are back with blockchain, amazingly, to verify credentials. We're working with the EU, with the University of the GN on creating a digital product passport, one of the first in the EU, so that we can track all of the information about a shipment stays in a wallet, basically. And as it moves through the supply chain, more credentials get added to the wallet. And all of those are verified using blockchain. So verified and stored so that you as the consumer have some sense of certainty that someone actually signed this, you can see it, and it was stored in something that can't be edited. So,
Are you abstracting the difficulty for everyone, so people don't have to download wallets and it's like it's just the underlying mechanism and the rails,
Exactly.
but people aren't having to get complicated with that.
there's a huge Japanese company that I would love to drop their name that has built the
Go ahead,
engine
drop
for
it.
us. It rhymes with, never mind, I'll get in trouble. But they've developed the engine for us, and so we're their test case for integrating blockchain into supply chain kind of things. So,
Maybe to take it back to the customer, could you share any anecdotes of like an unexpected learning or value capture that you've heard feedback from with your customer base?
So FreshScore is the thing that we're so excited about for the future, and that's why we're asking for help with that. If we can imagine, so at the factory, at the time of packaging, for that batch of chicken or whatever, seafood, if we can calculate a reasonable score of freshness, 99 out of 100, whatever, college grade A, then we want to start the models and the timing to know through the supply chain how is that changing over time. And then if it gets to a typical consumer fridge, how long do they have before we start running into issues? With FreshScore, and this is something that the folks at Refed brought up, is what if it's a B grade? Does the consumer go, oh, icky, throw it away? That is a risk that we have not worked through yet, and that's come up in a couple conversations in our research. People want to know the freshness, but if there's the slightest hint that I might get sick, or whatever, even though it's a B, there's no way you're going to get sick from it. We have to solve that problem. That's something that we're working with Refed to figure out.
Still have time?
Hi, just following up on that question. So I get my fish in my house with the fresh tag, and then for whatever reason, it just didn't go to the fridge at the right time, or is not at the right temperature. How is the QR code going to tell me that?
It's not. So this is not a perfect system. It's just better than what we've got, right?
Okay.
That's something that comes up a lot, is that we can't control consumer behavior.
Okay.
I'll fall asleep watching TV with my cheese dip and my nachos and then wake up at 3 like, oh, it's been sitting out for 4 hours. I should probably throw this away. We can't control that, and so, but we can give you a reasonable expectation of how fresh this would be or not be in the future based on this app. There's also a nudge factor, to your point. We have a nudge thing that basically says, remind me, 2 days before this hits your predicted end of freshness, so that when the fish is behind the chicken or the milk in the fridge, which happens all the time, that we go, oh crap, that's right, this is something we have to address and use up. So I can't control, we can control up to the consumer, and we can educate and advise the consumer, but we can't make them follow the model.
Okay. Same thing with pantries and the distribution from the donor to the pantry, right? Like there could be a temperature control as the ones that already exist, but your QR code cannot streamline that process.
We use our sensors only to track it through the supply chain until it gets to retail.
Okay.
So that's as far as we can go. The sensors typically get thrown away. Something that we're working on a biodegradable sensor that's printed out of paper. It's crazy. That should be out in a couple of years. But we can start to actually track beyond into the consumer's home.
Good luck. Fascinating.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Let's keep it going for all three presenters. Thank you all so much. So we have about 5 minutes while the judges deliberate on their decision, and we'll open it up and continue the audience Q&A in the meantime. So come on up here with any questions for all three of the presenters.
To ask questions. All right. Okay.
It's joke time.
I just forgot. Thank you so much for this. I think my question for Eric, I believe. Yeah. I really love what you're working on. I love the fact that you don't have necessarily an app. You can just scan a QR code, and that would take you directly to know how fresh a product is. I feel like there's a real opportunity in starting with one product, like let's say eggs only, right? And talk to some egg, like more progressive egg companies that we, pay, for example, $12 for what they do, and take it like brand by brand for the eggs. And then for us, when we get home, when we buy the eggs, we can just scan the QR code, and then it would tell me, like, I don't have to look at the Julian calendar of, like, I don't know when it was exported from what farm. I can immediately see, like a meter. It would tell me, like, okay, so this is the freshness 80%, or like this is how many days, and then start one by one, and like each brand within each product, and then switch. I think that would be really effective. Like I would do something like that, or like, and then move to milk, and then other dairy products and things like that. But I love where your head is at.
Thank you. I mean, that's a great approach. This is such a different model for the grocery industry and for food service, like to be able to have a prediction of freshness that changes over time, and an actual, using predictive AI, a pretty good, 90% certainty with that freshness. And so it's a big idea, and it's a lot to explain to people, as you can tell I went over. So right now I'm just rattling door handles, with retailers, and we've got this partnership with Washington State University, who is working with us really well on developing the models for fruit. We've now got a Brazilian lactose-tolerant milk producer who's going to be working with us from a chemistry perspective. It's awesome. We're so U.S.-centric, and we're so used to chasing those, but in these other countries, there's a serious hunger for this kind of technology, and there's not the framework that has been built through decades and decades of the normal way we do things. You know what I mean? So I'm hopeful that I can find some retailers here in the States, Sprouts, something like that will help us test and adopt this.
It's great because you also bypass the whole use by, expired by, and all that.
Exactly, and have a way better idea than a use-by date, which is mostly covering their butts, right? It's mostly to keep people from getting sick, generally speaking, but if we can be really specific and be really certain about that, then everyone benefits. Thank you.
Hi, my question is for you also, Eric, so please stay. But before I ask my question, Dr. Posner, I want to say to you, can you please tell me when your product is available, because I need it in my home?
I wish I had a definitive answer for that, but we're targeting 2025 for the Fresh Defend home. The refrigerators, it's going to be probably 3 years by the time we get that implemented into the crisper drawers working with the matrix.
That's fine. Doesn't have to be in a refrigerator. I can put it on the countertop, right?
Oh, yeah, the countertop unit works.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay, sign up now.
Okay, I will. I'll get your name. All right. But my question is for Eric. I know you mentioned that you cannot control for consumer use, right? I am assuming that your product is specifically for just fresh foods?
It's typically for fresh or frozen, and it's typically for higher margin, because if we are measuring grain or butter or vegetables, without a high margin, the margin is a fraction of a penny. It doesn't really justify the addition of a sensor to the load. But if you're doing a $1.5 million container of cod, black cod, or a $400,000 container of king crab, the ROI is amazing. like you save a $400,000 container, and the labor, the salaries, the processing, the water, all of the other things, you save it with a $100 sensor or whatever. It's a no-brainer for higher margin things, but for some things with low margin, it doesn't make sense.
Okay, well, I'm not buying that amount of food for my family of 5. But I was thinking as you were talking, I buy fresh meat and I bring it home, and the very first thing I do is I put it in the freezer. Mm-hmm. So what are you tracking? Are you tracking?
So it would be a different curve for a frozen product than for a fresh product. So we're developing the decay curves, if you will, for both.
Okay.
So and again, this is a brand new concept. I believe it has legs. Some of our customers in other countries believe it has legs, but it's a lot. That's why ReFed, had a wonderful grant from ReFed to build out this scoring system. to help specifically with consumer waste, since we're gathering the logistics information. But the one challenge that we're having in building this is getting the data from partners who are willing to help us. Right. We've had companies like General Mills say, yes, I'd love to help you. I'd love to be a charter member of your data modeling group, and then ghost me.
But no, you can't have my data.
What's that?
But no, you can't have my data.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what they tell you. Okay.
So
thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you all. Really fascinating projects that you're all working on. They all require consumers to change their behavior. And I bring that up because I work on that as well. So my question to you is, it's one thing to deliver the technology, to deliver the solution. In my own work, I've done that part and working on the other piece. So I'm curious how the three of you are thinking about, okay, then what? How do you get, especially from the consumer side, how do you get people to change their behavior? This question is for all three of you, and especially Remy, because I think the mobile app inputting all of that data is going to be that biggest shift. So curious to hear what you all are thinking of right now.
Okay, I'll go first, I guess. Ours, there is always, anytime there's a change, there's a behavioral change associated. Ours is more along the line of common sense, to be quite honest, because I'm not going to predict that you buy strawberries, they're going to last 15 days. A lot of our customers, said, well, how long will my strawberries last? Again, if you're buying them in the 11th hour, they aren't going to last long. And this is probably the reason we rely a great deal, unfortunately, on common sense. When you buy some fruits and vegetables, the closer they are to the origin, the more extension you're going to get out. But it still requires that feedback and monitoring and so on. You're going to get more time out of it, but I'm not going to guarantee you 20 days on this, 30 days on that, and so on, because, again, so it does rely a little more on the common sense and using traditional methods you've been using for your entire life. You watch it, you see when it starts to turn and so on, and you're getting more out of it, so you save money in extending it out. But it's not going to give you an answer because I don't know where that started from. That's the case with all of this. If you don't know the origin, where are you in that lifespan? Whether you're shipping it, when I get it, or whatever. Okay?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I have kind of a three-pronged answer to it. So the first is incentivization. So how can we incentivize users to keep their kitchen up to date, or how can we incentivize them to change their behavior? So stuff that we've been discussing is if they are keeping their kitchen up to date, providing them with coupons or providing them with free ingredients which have been promoted by our retail partners. Second is gamification. I think gamification can be really powerful if done right, and that's what we are putting a lot of work into right now, especially onboarding. How can we onboard someone effectively and get all their legacy items that they already have in their kitchen up to date on the phone or into the application? And then thirdly is reporting. So just keeping them up to date on how much, firstly, money they're saving, how much time they're saving, but then also how much food waste they're saving. I think what's really interesting is we've recently rebranded. We used to be called Taste Don't Waste. We've had to rebrand to Remy. Taste Don't Waste was your food waste reduction tool. Remy is now your digital kitchen assistant. And the reason being is because we found that the average consumer doesn't want to engage with a sustainability app. They want to engage with something a bit more I don't know, like sexier than that. And so that's why kind of really illustrating how much time and money they're saving, we believe will be relatively powerful there in combination with kind of the other things I've mentioned. Thanks.
So anytime you talk about any new technology, education is everything, right? You have to start with education. I used to pitch blockchain for food to business people, and you could just see them glass over after about 3 sentences because it was too much, it was too technical, and there was not an obvious benefit. With consumers, it has to be so much simpler, and there has to be a clear benefit. So I'm an ad guy, an advertising guy from a career perspective, and it can be done. You can change consumer behavior, but it's tricky. You're changing the way they shop. You're changing the way they they cook, you're changing the way they store the food, and the way they dispose of it. So it's a lot to cover, but it's going to be built into our app, that education process. We'll be doing the Stitch incoming TikTok videos and all sorts of other stuff as well to make sure that people understand what the value is and what they can do to help.
Thank you.
All right, our judges have rejoined us, so let's have a quick little drum roll together, and then let's hear the results.
Are we just saying it, not giving any feedback, or just real quick? Real quick, I liked that we had 3 different solutions coming from different approaches, attacking the problems in different ways. I commend you all for going after the consumer market, which is, I feel like, the hardest part of the food value chain for food waste reduction. Any feedback?
Yeah, and I think it's 3 very different approaches and kind of different pieces of it too, right? And it speaks to the fact that one of these themes about waste is that the entire reason ReFed exists is multi-stakeholder engagement, right? Like, we got to bring the different pieces together. So I think it's really strong that you're all thinking of how to do that. And the one piece of advice, which I feel like, broken record, is always just who's your customer, right? And really focusing on that. But super great to see the kind of breadth of how you're approaching this problem.
Yeah, and there might be an opportunity to work together. I feel like your solution could use a digital life management solution. Maybe there's some software that goes with the hardware there. So, but are we ready to do like the drum roll and announce the winner?
Yeah. And the winner is Transparent Path.
But there are no losers, because we liked your guys' solution as well. But just the polishedness of your presentation, and I think we're happy with it.
Everyone's a winner, so.
Everyone's a winner.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much to all 3 of our presenters. Everyone is a winner, like we said, and so please feel free to connect with all 3 of them as the rest of the conference goes on. So let's give another hand.
Okay.